Hello, hello. Happy Thursday. Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. Long time no see via webinar.
I know. The
I know
unusual, but we're
we're
back.
back after a long hiatus, which is a good thing. We've been off our webinar track for a little bit here. Had some things happen and just been a chaotic time with the holidays. That we're back with a pretty exciting announcement that you and I have been working on for quite some time. I know that we're both very excited to launch this, and we're going to talk today about all things Zapier. So big moment for us, right?
Right. All of your dreams are coming true for those watching.
We've had many practices ask for this, I don't know, Victoria, for 6, 7, 8 months, and it's been a bit of a challenge to get it all done because you have to do a lot of specific things with Zapier that are different. We don't really control the process like we normally would get to do with our own system, but that's part of the neat aspect of Zapier is that we are connected now with our system to 2,000 different apps in the Zapier marketplace. They don't all work the right way with our system because they're not made for that kind of data, but you can use a lot of them. So we're going to spend the bulk of today going through really multiple steps, how to set it up, what to do with it, how to use it within a static record, and then what kinds of things you might think about doing with the system once you get it all configured. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to be doing a lot of sharing today of my screen, so I'm going to go back and forth, so just kind of bear with me as I kind of toggle back and forth. But to get us started here, we're going to go ahead and just kick it off, and I'm calling it the ins and outs because Victoria and I have been working on getting these all set up and trying them and breaking them and rebuilding them, and so we kind of know about a lot of the ins and outs at this point. So just to get started, if you don't know what Zapier is, I think it's a great place to start. So as we think about integrations with our system, as you guys know, we have a few key third-party integrations right now: Constant Contact, MailChimp, we have Activecampaign, Zoho, HubSpot, and I think that's it, and TouchMD, obviously. And they work natively with the systems that they're connected to. And so other than Zoho right now, before Zapier, you could only look at invoice information in your system and in the Zoho integration. But now with the Zapier opportunity, you can now see your invoice data coming over as well to whatever system you want to zap it to, as long as that system has Zapier. So the way that it works is we have AR as like our base data repository. We zap that information into Zapier, which is like this little hub, and then within the Zapier world, it can now shoot that data out safely, compliantly, to, again, about 2,000 different applications. So it prevents us from having to actually connect with all these different systems and allows us to take the data that you create in your own AR account and put it out to whatever systems that you choose to do. And we're starting small with a couple of different opportunities, but we'll quickly grow this list of information to be zapped out very, very soon. So it's kind of one of those things where you stand up your MVP, your sort of minimal value product here. Once it works and it's effective, then you keep growing out the system from there. So we've started some pretty good things, but we're going to be able to do even more very, very soon. Victoria, what are you hearing about with Zapier with customers who are on the edge of their seat waiting for this?
I know, patiently waiting. So I think it's one of those things, if you guys are unfamiliar with Zapier, it's a great way to just get the information that you want into one place for you to digest and really look at it and kind of customize what you actually want that to look like. So I think just, we all love data. So as we talk about a lot in, a lot of our webinars, so just being able to really digest the data or specific targeted lists and get it all into one place for you to view, I think is, super impactful for the business.
And if you're not using Zapier today, like you're not a Zapier person, I can tell you that this is only going to be one thing that you can do. Victoria and I use Zapier for everything. When you have leads coming in from your website, if you have any sort of form that gets filled out, if you have activities that you want sent out to different pieces, we zap things from one system to the other, and they're all automated. You set it up one time. As long as you set it up correctly, it keeps working for you. If there's ever an issue, it will tell you, hey, your Zap is broken. But we're able to send a form into our Slack feed and into our Gmail and then make an event out of it for a calendar invite. So you can do so much with Zapier that we're going to just kind of tip the surface today with what we are able to provide to you. But if you're not currently using Zapier, I suggest that you dive all in because you're going to be shocked at how much you can reduce your actual manual workflow by doing everything in automation. So the good news is Zapier is free. If you do about 10 zaps a month, which is a pretty small amount, you can set up 10 different data exchanges a month for free. Now here's the one caveat to that. If you're going to send our information from AR into a CRM system, so a true CRM like a Zoho, an Activecampaign, where you have to do a couple different things to get the Zapier system to work, you're going to have a paid account, because a multi-step Zap, which will make sense in a minute, a multi-step Zap does not work on a free account. If you just want to zap one thing to your Google Sheets or to your calendar or to your Gmail or to your Slack, like a one shot, you can do it for free with no problems. So that'll make a little bit more sense in just a second. And then the other part of this is whatever system you're going to from AR, in order to make the connection, you're going to have either the API keys or a login to authenticate through. In many cases, the API keys are only revealed to the admins on the account. Like we have API keys for all kinds of things that we use. But in like our CRM, only Victoria and I have access to that because we're the admin. So if you're going to set this up and you're not the admin on the account, make sure that you have those API keys handy, or you have an authentication login to get you in. On the AR side, same thing, you're gonna have the API keys, but those should be revealed to you, I think, as long as you're an admin in the system, you can see all that. And I'll take you through how that looks in just a second. And that will depend on the system that you use too. So really it's this simple. It's basically 3 steps to start. Once you get into Zap, it's a bit more challenging, but the first thing is to turn on your Zap integration within the AR platform, and I'll take you through how to do that in just a second. And then second, you're gonna connect AR to Zapier. So set up AR and then connect AR to Zapier. And then once you're inside Zapier, you just start making Zaps. It's kind of fun to say too, right? Like, let's zap it, make a Zap.
I'm gonna
zap you. It's like a lightning bolt. So it's 3 quick steps. And so to get set up, I'm gonna walk you through kind of really, in a sense, step by step by step. But I'm gonna go through a couple more things first. In our current integration, we can do 2 different things for you. So there's a step 1, step 2. In step 1, we can send over to anything that's in the Zapier world the patient's first name, last name, email, phone number. Those things can all come over with one Zap. We can also send over all that information plus an invoice number, an invoice amount, a pay date, and a referral source. So that's kind of the list of things that you can send over. So just think about what you can do with this Zapier integration, things that you want to put a sales number in, be perfect, or a customer's email address, or when they closed, like if they came in for a consultation, they actually paid a bill, they closed a consultation. So all that can be now sent through Zapier, but those are the 2 big buckets of things that we can send today. I've gotten lots of requests since we put this on Instagram, like, can you zap this? Can you zap this? I hope we can zap everything very soon, but for now, those are the 2 big things that we're zapping and the 2 kind of steps that we're zapping. And then for some Zaps, you're going to have to use both to get what you want. For others, you won't. And it's going to be dependent on the software that you choose to zap it to. And that's all defined by Zapier and the software that you're sending it to. So I'm going to tell you how to work it on our end, and then you can kind of, as you go through those different software applications, you'll see how to tweak it to make it work for you. And then we're going to go through a couple of examples today. We've got 4 use cases, and we can certainly ideate more as we go. We're going to send our patient invoices to Google Spreadsheet, which is a super simple Zap. We're going to create a deal in Activecampaign. We have a lot of customers who use Activecampaign, and we'll show you how to go through the deal making process. We're going to add a patient who has paid, an invoiced patient, into our Zoho campaign to send him like a weekly, thank you for coming in, we appreciate your business, we're so glad you're here, here's a referral code to use for a friend kind of email. And then lastly, we're going to do a calendar follow-up. So if I were to inject a patient today, I could have a calendar invite tomorrow with like maybe my admin to call them and check on them. We're going to do a follow-up call. So we're going to go through those 4 different use cases today, but there are far more than that you can use. We're just going to hit those 4 highlights today. All right, so I'm going to switch over. And as I do that, Victoria, feel free to jump in with anything you have to say.
Yeah, so I think, kind of the biggest piece to be on the lookout for today is, to Tiffany's point, think about some of the different things that you are manually doing in your business, whether it's manually pulling specific reports or, maybe you're manually going through the system, seeing who you need to follow up with. So think about the ways that Zapier can potentially help streamline different things in your business so that your staff doesn't necessarily have to worry about it. So.
And I think one of the big things that we've been asked, or I've been asked a lot, is about the patient's actual invoice. And so I know that we are all crazy about HIPAA. We all live and breathe and die by HIPAA every day. We are sending over like an aggregated or an anonymized, if you will, data set. So we're saying that Victoria spent $1,000, period. We can't say that she spent that $1,000 on Botox, on Restylane, and on a skincare product, because that all of a sudden becomes like a HIPAA issue or a HIPAA risk, because now we're saying that she was treated in the practice with these different things. Now her medical record, in a sense, is in this little container thing. And we, again, don't protect it past Zapier. So we're only sending out things in Zapier that would never conflict or confirm a patient's been treated by you in the clinic for any particular thing. It's just an invoice amount. It could have been a gift card, who knows? So just as you think about what you're going to use this for and you wonder, how come I can't see what she bought? I want to do my inventory reconciliation here. We just can't send that over. But we can hopefully send over some inventory usage data very soon that wouldn't be patient specific, that wouldn't have a HIPAA compliance issue. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start with, from the beginning, step number 1. So we'll go full screen on this, I think, JT, just to make it easy to see. So if you are an AR user, you're going to understand what I'm going to go through, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time getting there. But if you are using Zapier, or you want to use Zapier, you have to have the AR Accelerator subscription. So you have to have the one that includes before and after videos, two-way text messaging, third-party integrations, all the bells and whistles, if you will. So if you have that subscription, this will be easy breezy for you. We're going to first go into our little settings wheel here. And just like you've done if you're already connected elsewhere to a third-party integration, scroll down, click on your integrations tab, and you're going to click on Zapier. So once you come into this menu, you're going to see here some credentials. Now, if you notice a secure key is all X'd out. It's like a credit card number, right? People can't get into your account unless they have both of those numbers. So your API key is important, but so is the second one. So as I show you this, I'm not going to actually give you the key to see, but I'm going to walk you through kind of how to do it. So once you have this done, you've turned your little toggle on here at the top that says Sync Zapier. Make sure you have that turned on, and then this screen will reveal itself for you. So keep this screen open. You need this. Step number 2 is you're going to go into Zapier and connect it. If you're not already a Zapier user, it's a simple, easy sign up. You just hit sign up, put in your Google. If you're using Google or Facebook, you can just authenticate through there. It's going to put you into a menu that says pick your apps. Like, what things do you use? You can choose all the apps that you are interested in zapping to at some point, or you can skip that step. I'm obviously using Zapier a lot, so I've got a very full list of Zaps, so I'm going to skip that step. But as I go into my Zapier account, you're going to have a blank screen if you have nothing that you've ever built before. If you don't, you'll see lots of things there. You're just going to kind of add to it. So you're going to go to My Apps, which you see right here. And these are going to be all the things that I have authenticated through, or I put an API key in to connect it to my Zapier account. So you see here, aesthetic record EMR. So if I'm going to go ahead and reconnect that, I would hit this connection here. You see I already have it connected. And I would go to this, it would say for you connect, because you wouldn't have it connected yet. So if you hit the word connect, you're going to pop open a menu that gives you those two things that I just showed you. It's going to say what is your API key and what is your secret key. So you have this screen here in front of you, you're good to go. Toggle back over to your AR screen, and you would copy this right here, and you would paste it right there. So copy it off AR, put it over here. And then you're gonna go back to your secret key, and here's the kicker. You must first hit show and then hit copy. If you just try to copy, it's gonna copy all the X's. So first hit show, then hit copy, and paste that right here at the bottom. Once you do that, you hit yes, continue, and then Zapier will connect it for you instantly. The good thing about Zapier is you get an immediate feedback of does it work or does it not. It will connect it instantly and say a little green success message, you're good to go. If not, it'll tell you it doesn't work, try again. So you'll get a quick little pulse check there. Once that's connected, then your Zapier account is now connected to your aesthetic record account. If you're a person who has multiple practices, so it means you have multiple separate AR accounts, you can connect as many of them as you want. You just keep connecting. So if I were to show you what I had this morning, I cleaned this up for you for the webinar. I had about 5 of our beta accounts also. We have a lot of different testing accounts. I had about 5 different EMR accounts connected here, and I had them listed as aesthetic record EMR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this list can be as long as you want it to. So if you have 15 practices, don't worry, you can have 15 different connections that can all go to different spreadsheets and different things. I'm just going to use the one that I have right now. So that's all set up. You're good to go. All right, so now we're going to go make a Zap. And I'm not looking at our questions. Do we have any chats or questions coming in right now?
We're in the clear, no questions. But guys, if you do have questions, you do have that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So definitely, shoot us our questions as we move along.
And I hear that we're having some blurry screen issues, which is unfortunate on Zoom. Hopefully you can see this. If not, the YouTube will be crystal clear. Okay, so now I'm going to go make my Zaps. And I've already made these for you for today just to kind of see the process already done. And I've also connected them to the things that they were zapping to see the whole process from start to finish. But we're going to go as if we were doing it from the beginning. So if you go to make your Zap, you're going to see a pretty lengthy menu here of things. when you see this start button here, I've already connected a lot of things to Zaps. It's going to default my typical things I connect, but I'm going to search in my app, aesthetic record EMR, and it says beta. So don't let that panic you. With Zapier, until you do so many connections, you have to be a beta. So we're not quite there yet. We need you guys to use it so you can come out of the beta. But once you hit the EMR beta here, you see it sticks that little thing right there for you. And this is the one that's connected. So you're going to pick which one you want to use in just a second. So I'm going to do my trigger event. And I mentioned you have 2 different trigger options. You have a new patient coming into your account. So that's just like the first, last email phone, or a new invoice. So I'm curious about the invoices. They're more important to me because I'm already using our integrated integrations for my new patients. I want to go to the invoice part. So I'm going to do a new invoice. When I hit continue, it says choose the account. So here's where you get to decide which one you want. I only have one open, so I'm good to go. I'm going to pick my one EMR account. And I'm going to hit save and continue. So again, I mentioned it gives you a test instantly. It's going to test your trigger. Does it work? Yep, it's going to find an invoice that you've just rung up in your system, like a most recent invoice, and it's going to make sure that it can find that invoice inside of a static record and bring all the data over. If for some reason that doesn't connect, then you may have an issue with the API keys. They may have hit refresh credentials on you, and now you don't have the same credentials in your account, but you're going to get a test really quickly there to say, does it work or does it not work? So you see here all the things that are going to zap. This is kind of your gut check. I'm going to zap over ID, invoice number, et cetera, et cetera. Now this is going to throw you for a loop because I scratched my head on this for a solid week. You see amount in dollars and amount in cents. And I'm thinking to myself, who would want cents? Like, that's crazy town. Because you see here, it looks like she spent $30,000. If you guys can see that, I'll zoom. Can you see that on the screen?
Yeah.
Perfect, okay. So the amount in cents. So some of the CRM systems and some of the other systems, they want the data in cents. So if you use Activecampaign, for instance, you can't zap a dollar amount. You have to zap a cents amount. So if you're looking at this thinking, what on earth is that? It's just the exact same number in dollars or cents. So don't let that panic you. But you see here we have all the information, which is a good sort of note for you in AR, is if you don't put in the phone number or referral source, you can't zap it out. So if you wanted to use like your texting system, if you have like an email marketing campaign system inside of your CRM, you want to put the phone number in there so you can zap that over. And now that phone number becomes part of an email campaign you can do via SMS instead. So phone numbers are critical. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue here. It's just going to walk me down the path of all the things I have to do in a very pathwise or stepwise process. So now it's like, okay, what do you want to connect it to? I'm going to connect it to, let's say, Google Sheets. Actually, I'll do Google Sheets. And I've already built all these, so I can certainly go back to those, but just to see how it works. So once I'm in Google Sheets, it's going to say, okay, now choose an event. So what do you want to do with this information? And what you see when you click on Action Event are all the things that Google Sheets has allowed us to do. So we don't control that list. It's whatever the software system gives us, and then we're going to work around it. So I'm going to create a spreadsheet row. So when people come in and they swipe their credit card and pay their bill, I'm going to send over to some spreadsheet somewhere a unique row that says Victoria Adrian and all her information. Tiphany Lopez, all her information. So I'm going to go ahead and create my spreadsheet row and hit continue. And then now it's where you start to kind of look through the account, which one are you using, what sheet are you using, etc. So I'm going to use my Google Sheets account that you see is connected here. And again, I've already connected prior to this call my Google account to Zapier. Save and continue. I'm going to connect which drive it's in, my Google Drive, which spreadsheet. I'm going to use the webinar Zap spreadsheet. And I'm going to pick sheet number 2 because I've already got sheet number 1 all set up. Well, I'm going to have to probably use this one too. So you'll see it in a second. And then once I get here, it starts to pull out like an accordion all the things I can send over. I'm going to match my fields. So I'm going to match my invoice number. So you see here, new invoice and a static record EMR. We're going to now pick the matching fields. Now it's just like a game of match. So my invoice number is going to be invoice number, easy match. My name, I'm going to do first name, last name together. So we zap it over as 2 separate fields. I'm going to go first and last so that it shows up in my account as Jenna Smith, not Jenna in a cell and Smith in a cell. If your CRM needs it separate, just keep them separate. Pretty simple. I have her email address here. And the good news is it gives you an example from the previous test Zap, so you can actually figure out which things are which. And then I'm going to go to my amount, and I'm going to pick my amount in dollars because I'm not crazy and can't read it in cents. So So I'm going to go to my invoice amount in dollars, as you see. I'm sorry if it's blurry. We will have it on YouTube in perfect, pristine condition. And then paid on, my pay date. And then lastly, referral source. I think she doesn't have one, but we're going to go ahead and put it over because our other customers might have it. So once that's all done, we're going to hit save and continue. Here's one kicker that you have to know when you set this up, and I'll show you this in a second. In order to make this work, your Google Sheet has to have headers. And many other systems are going to be the same way. They have to have a defined place to stick this data to match it. So if I were going to just zap this over to an empty Google spreadsheet, Zapier would say, nope, nope, you got to have headers. Without headers, I can't match it. There's no mapping for me. So go into your Google spreadsheet first and build your row of things that you want to actually populate. And then your headers that you have there is what's matching here. So if you see the things I matched it to, my headers in my actual Google Sheet are name, email, amount. I've already pre-built that on my Google spreadsheet side. Once I hit save and continue, it's going to basically say, we're going to test it. Is it going to work? If I hit test and continue, you're going to see that it's going to work fine, and it's going to send over that Jenna Smith test data into my Google spreadsheet immediately. So I'm not going to turn this on. I'm going to show you what it looks like instead. So I've already built this puppy. So if you can see, I'll do a big zoom here because this is really far away. If you guys can see that, I know it's kind of giant. You see it zapped over. So I've had these people who bought things today. It zapped over my invoice amount, or I'm sorry, invoice number, name, and again I have first, last together. I didn't put a space in there in my original, you can see that. My email addresses, amount in dollars, date, and referral source. So on the amount in dollars, if there are no cents, like if it's just an even $300, you're not going to have .00. Don't let that confuse you. But as you see here, I already have these headers in this row number 1, and that's how it was able to match. So Google is an easy one. It's a one-stepper, super simple to do. If I wanted to do each week separately, I could do week 1 here, and I could obviously do another sheet here and call that week 2, and I can just make a new Zap for next week and attach it to week 2 if I wanted to. So you can make this as big as you want it to go and just keep going on and on and on and on forever if you wanted to. At some point, you do push enough data through it that Zapier's like, wait a minute, this thing's getting way too big. You got to make a new Zap. This is out of control. So you'll hit like a data threshold with Zapier, but it comes way down the line. You'll have to do a lot of business or a lot of invoices for that to happen. So you got a good couple months without that happening. All right, Victoria, we're going to take a break here, take a breath, and see what you think about that one. Or if we have any questions.
Well, I was just going to say I'm so excited about the referral source. I don't know about you guys, but from a marketing perspective, I think that is so impactful to be able to have that really, at your fingertips. So I'm very excited about that. And then too, the invoices, we get a lot of questions on that. So I think really being able to pull that data quickly into one sheet is amazing. And you guys should all be super excited to use it. So
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think the other part of that with referral sources is we're hoping to very soon expand that menu out for you, so you have a few more things up your sleeve for referral sources, which will be helpful again in this case. As you zap it over to your CRM, you could say Facebook campaign, billboard on I-95, whatever the referral source is, if you have some custom fields there, which thank you, Lori Robertson, for walking us through some ways to get that done. It's Skin Perfect. We appreciate you for your help there. But I'm going to go to another use case. So if we feel good about this one, I'm going to go to one that's a bit more complex and challenging, which is how you'd work with your CRM specifically. So this one gets a little bit in the weeds. One thing I will tell you, as a person who has like 1 million Zaps in their account, if you guys see this chaos right here, I'm not on the screen yet. We'll let JT move me over. So if you can see my screen, I've got like 9 million Zaps. Name them. Don't be me. You see name your Zap. I have no idea what the heck that Zap is. No clue. So I have been a good girl for today, and I have named all of mine with something webinar in them so that I could filter for you. So name your darn Zap, especially if you're doing it by the week. So if you're going to do it, like I just mentioned, if you wanted to do a Zap for this week's, or let's say November invoices, and you want to do a Zap for December invoices, make sure that you name that puppy with whatever month you're using, or else they all just sort of merge together in your mind. Trust me, I can tell you from experience. So we're going to next go into Activecampaign. And while you may not have Activecampaign, it may not be important to you, most CRMs are going to work the exact same way with a 2-stepper. So at least pay attention to the fact that this is going to be a multi-step Zap. So again, if you have a free account, you can't do this one. So you're going to want to upgrade, and it's dirt cheap for what you can do with it, and the time that you'll save with all other things you can zap, worth every penny, I promise. So I'm going to go into our AC webinar, Zap, and I'm going to actually use it from here to show you what's already been done because it's kind of lengthy. This is the one that you go back and look at on YouTube if you forgot how to do it, because it's going to be a good one to remember. So as you see here, we have 3 different steps, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can get a little closer. Hopefully you can see that okay. So step number 1 for us is going to be the same for all of them. We're going to have to pick what we're going to do, the trigger step. So in our case, we're going to trigger, again, the new invoice in AR, because like I said, I already have my Activecampaign integrated natively for patient names. So that makes it a little bit easier, frankly, here, because as the system looks for the patient in Activecampaign, they're going to always be there, because the same sync that's going to drive this Zap is driving that integration. So you're never going to have a time where the patient who bought something is not already in your AC system or your Zoho or your HubSpot or whatever else it is, because that sync is working as well. So we're going to first go into our trigger, which you've seen that before. We're choosing our app again, which I've already chosen here. My event is a new invoice, right? A new patient or a new payment, a new swipe or new cash payment. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, and it's going to again verify that things work. So we're all good. We work here. And then I'm next going to go into testing my trigger. So it's going to be the exact same kind of thing that we just did. It's going to find a recent invoice. And so I did this morning earlier, so the name on it's a little bit crazy. It's one of our test patients who has a lot of A's in their last name, but it found a recent invoice again to give me a data set to try and work on as I go through these things. So I'm going to confirm that yes, use invoice C. If they have multiple invoices, I got to pick one or the other. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. I think we have a question coming in. I'm getting a note here that we've got a Q&A.
We do. I was just about to read that to you.
Yeah.
So our question is in regards to pulling specific treatments from an invoice. Can we zap specific treatments that a patient has paid for with Zapier?
And what's the answer with HIPAA, Victoria?
We cannot, unfortunately.
We cannot. That is a HIPAA no-no. You may have come on a little bit late. I see anonymous attendee. Give us your name. We'd like to know who you are. But we can't.
So mysterious.
I know, I like it. We can't send that over. You can't send treatment level data from a HIPAA compliant system out of it to something else, because I don't control what happens there. You don't control what happens there. None of us do. So we can only send over the amount. It's a HIPAA thing. I can't get around it. We'd love to be able to do it, but in the event that someone ever, hacked something that was now sent back to our system, like let's say they hacked your, I don't know, whatever you zapped it to, and they were like, how did you get this information about Victoria Adrian? Well, I zapped it from AR. It's something that we couldn't control, and so we only can send over the amount in the invoice. But you have your information inside of AR, which you have a nice export for. You could send somewhere else if you wanted to. So you can get that within AR. At that point, it's kind of on you to do with it what you want to do, but for inventory purposes. But we can't send that over, unfortunately. But run one of the reports in AR, and then just send over your contact list. So if you're thinking right now, wait a minute, I can run a report that says patients had X and not Y, and I can share that report, but you're only sharing in that report an email list. You're not saying, for Victoria Adrian, she had Botox and not Restylane. You're saying that Victoria Adrian is on this email serve. So it's different. When you do it like this, you are saying specifically that this patient had this treatment. That's why we can't do it. So hopefully that answers your question. Sorry for the long ramble. Okay, back to the job at hand. So we've gotten our AR connected to Activecampaign, all's good. So when you go into Activecampaign, very similar. You have to connect it. I've done this step already this morning. So inside of our Activecampaign account, if you are in here, you're going to go down to your settings, if you can see that. And for most CRM, same thing, and you're going to have an API key list. So under your developer tab, for this one particularly, you have an API list. I'm not going to show it to you because it is our API that we actually use in production. But if you hit developer here, you'll see API keys. I think Zoho is the same way. I know we use that as well, HubSpot as well. So you'll have to have the API level for a lot of these. MailChimp and Constant Contact, not so much. They're not quite as secure on that part of it. So back to the Zaps. So again, it's going to be a multi-stepper. So we're going to first have to, and think about this in your mind, in order to put an invoice to a patient's record, I have to first find the patient. So that's the way that I've kind of in my mind figured this out. I can't send over an invoice amount if I don't know who I'm sending it for. So you have to have a step 1, find the patient. And then step 2, send the invoice. So that's why these things that are 2 steps, any system that already has patient names in it, you're going to have to always do a find the patient first step and then an add invoice amount to it. So back to the wagon here, JT, if you want to get us back to full screen. I'm going to choose my Activecampaign app, as we've already done. And then I'm going to choose my app and event. I'm going to have to, again, first either create a new contact, which you'll never have to do because these are already people who are in your system, and then update that thing. So I'm going to create an update and hit continue. It's like, oh, you want to use Activecampaign? Yes, it's already set up. We're good to go. It may at some point say expired or this thing is timed out. After so long, as like a safety mechanism for Zapier, it will shut it down. Because it's like, wait a minute, you've had this thing going for a year. Are you sure you're still the owner of this account? You have to go back and just reconnect it. So don't let that panic you. On my actions, I'm going to go into my master contact list because I'm going to look at patients across all lists. If you've done your integration with us natively, you may have already set that up to put people in only a new patient list or an existing patient list versus a leads list. In that case, just choose a different contact list. You would choose just patient list, not leads list or whatever that might be. So we're going to use our master contact list, which has everybody and their mama in it. That sounded so country. Everybody and their mama. And then again, I have the data that I've already pulled over from the test patient. So I'm going to put that in here, email, first name, and these are all fields from Activecampaign. They have a first, last, full name. They want me to do all 3 versions. Phone number. If you have any tags, but we don't send over tags because it's not that kind of system. And then we have a lot of custom fields. So you're going to see a big old long list of things here that don't even apply to you. You may have custom things in your CRM as well. So lots of stuff here. So you're going to see I've matched up the things that matter most to me, which is email address, phone number, first and last. And then I'm going to hit test action. Oh, we're successful. It worked. So I know that my connection with Activecampaign is good to go. So as you see, it now gives me back the Activecampaign response, which is a subscriber ID. I'm going to need that, and then contact added. So in my case, this was not a real patient, so we had to add the contact. So I'm going to go to my next step, because that step's all finished. We're good to go. Now the second part of this is the actual invoice amount. So with Activecampaign, I'm going to create a deal. So in Zoho, for instance, you can actually do an invoice amount. So they have a system where I can say Victoria has spent this much money this year, and I can put every single invoice amount on her account. Activecampaign, not the same. I'm not sure about HubSpot, but you have to do an actual deal in Activecampaign and then move your person through the deal as they buy things or you win the deal. So I'm going to create the deal in Activecampaign. So I'm going to, again, Activecampaign. I'll be able to choose this from my list of apps, but I'm going to use Activecampaign. I'm going to go ahead and create it. Good to go there. And then I'm going to set my actions up. So I'm going to put the title of the deal as the patient's first name, last name. You can change that if you want. My value is the invoice amount in cents. It has to be done in cents. So they tell you here, if you see it, they tell you to do it in cents. Example. So they're going to give you these like weird things for all these systems. Zapier already puts that in there for you as like a, hey, by the way, the owner. So when you're looking at your CRMs, in our case here, Activecampaign, there are going to be nuances. Like I have to set up an auto deal. I can't assign this to a person. I got to assign it to whoever round robin. So I'll show you an Activecampaign what that means in just a second. Or I could assign it to like Victoria or whomever I wanted to, my whole list of people here. But we're going to go the auto route. And then, so one thing with commission, all of you who love commission conversations every day, you could set up a deal where Zaps go to different people if you wanted to, but we're going to go auto. And then I've already built a pipeline. Again, I had to do some work in Activecampaign first. I built a pipeline called patient conversions. And I'm going to put these people in the stage, which is patient conversions, and then the winning stage of patient conversion. So that's all going to be done there. And then I'm going to have to either put in the active account ID or the active contact ID. And as you saw, whenever we zapped it over up at the top, it gave us a printout of that. Like, here's your active ID. So I'm going to have to add that in, which you get it from the list of things, of fields here. You pick it. And then lastly, I'm going to go on the paid date. So when you do a deal in Activecampaign, you have to tell it when this thing should be paid or when you expect to close the deal. Well, we've already closed the deal, right? Because we sold the patient today, so it's pretty standard. Then we're going to hit close. I could test the action, which we can do. You would test it. And then once it's all set, you're going to get a note here to turn on your Zap. I've already got mine turned on, so there is no note. But once you've gone through all this and set it all up and it's successful, you'll say turn on the Zap. So feels like a lot of steps. However, the good news is you do it one time and then you're done forever. It just keeps going on its own as long as you keep going. So there's no need to come back to it. So I'm gonna go over into Activecampaign and show you what that looks like. So I mentioned before on the pipeline. So again, you may not use a CRM at all, but if you use a CRM at all, of any sort, there probably is like a deals winning kind of thing. So I've had to make my pipeline in advance. So again, whatever I'm zapping to has to be pre-configured to take the zap in. So I'm going to use my patient conversions pipeline that you see here. And then I'm going to set some things up for it. As I mentioned, there's got to be like an auto assignment. If I go into my options, in this case, Activecampaign, I'm doing a round robin. So it might be different for different CRMs, but you have to kind of set that up, because if you don't do an auto or round robin, it's going to force you to choose a person. And you may not want that on someone's deal board. But I recommend that you keep these. If you're doing like a lead conversion board, like if I were in actual practice, I might have all my new leads coming in. They do a Facebook campaign, a form, whatever it is. They come into the system in some way. They come into AR. If they're a new lead, they would be here in the new lead section. And then as they actually convert, I can use Zapier to convert the deal stage from lead to patient conversion at the point that they buy. So I can change my Zap. I just chose to use a Zap that said create a deal. You could do update a deal as well. So you got options there. So in my system today, I've done my my convert my deal. You see now all my patients here who've bought today. So the same list that was in our Excel spreadsheet, you see them all here. And I can look at today, I've collected $6.6 thousand in USD on the list here. And then let's say someone doesn't convert in my leads, I can move them over and follow up or whatever that looks like. Or I can move these guys into follow up as well. So if I want to do a 2-week follow up, I can just move them on over to the next bucket. But it's all here for you. Zoho has a very similar pipeline, but again, the invoice comes into Zoho directly. But you can put them on pipelines if you want to in Zoho. You get to choose. So that's kind of the CRM function. But again, what I want you to take away from this, because this is what tripped me up, and I'm pretty good at Zapier, we use it a lot, is this two-stepper. That I've got to first find the contact or add a new one, and then second, I have to actually update the deal or send the invoice over. So no matter what CRM you're using, it might be a deal or an invoice, find or update, and then you have to do the next part of it. There is an intermediary step. So for some CRMs, they're going to have a weird step where you can skip some of it and find the person instead. You can do a search function. So if you are in, let me go up here. If I'm going to create an update, I could actually search for a user with like this little find function. And so if your CRM is set up that way, Zapier will force you to do it, but you'll have this extra step that says like find the user. It's like it's almost like you're Googling a CRM, but it'll force you to use that if you have to use it for your system. We don't have to do that for Activecampaign, so you don't see it here. Okay, so Victoria, thoughts on that one before I move on? That's the hardest one of all.
Well, I think it's a great sales tool. So especially, in your organization, if you have sales consultants or, whatever that might look like for you, or if you are the sales consultant, I think that it's a really, really great sales tool just to make sure that if you do get busy, that you're not losing, potential revenue from your leads. So
yeah, and to get like a gut check every day of how many invoices have come over. So I'm going to, the last two are quick, I promise. All right, so we're going to do two more. I'm going to do a Zoho campaign. And this one to me is like, I didn't even think about this when we built the system, but now that we use Zoho, it made so much sense to me that if you want, you can do a couple things here. You could go into your AR account today and you can look up new patients versus returning patients, right? We have kind of that little thing. You could do some different sales reports, but what if I just wanted to go and send out a nice email campaign, like an automated email every single day after someone comes in and say, hey, thanks for coming. We hope you loved your visit. Here's a referral code, or come back and see us, whatever that is, like a nice little email, or even like an SMS campaign if you wanted to do that. You could send something out like the next day. So part of that with our system with Zoho is a campaign. It's the same for Activecampaign as well. I think HubSpot has the same thing, but you're basically going to take this list of people and zap them over into a little curated list of things. So I'm going to go through that one. This is a one-stepper. It's really easy because I'm not going to send over the invoice amount. I'm just going to send over the contact. So we'll go ahead and go back into our screen here. So I have done a new invoice, not important, but the point of me showing you this is that even if you don't have all the data to zap over or it's not the right fit, you can get what you need still. So in this case, I'm going to use new invoice. You could also use just a new patient. But what I want to know is who is spending money, right? I don't care who's a new patient. I care who's actually spent money today, because I'm going to send them a thank you note for spending money here. So you could do one of two things. You could send over a new patient zap or a paid patient zap, is what this is. So I'm going to go through here really quickly, and what I've already been doing, my EMR account, it's already in here. My invoice is or my trigger is a new invoice. We're all connected here. I'm going to test my trigger. You're good to go. We found an invoice. It does the same thing again. It says invoice correct and things look right. Yep, they all look good to me. Hit continue. And then now it goes into the Zoho campaigns. So for us, I'm going to go and choose my system, again, Zoho campaigns. It required me to log in and authenticate in, no API key required. And I'm going to add or update the contact. So in my campaign list, I may have no one in there so far. It's a brand new Zap, right? The list is totally empty. So any new paid invoice is going to come into my system as a new person on that campaign list. Let's say I'm doing it for a whole month, and I want to just send out at the end of the month a thank you email. If the patient comes back in multiple times, it's going to search for the patient and say, yep, Victoria's already in there, don't add her again. So in case you're doing a longer term Zap, you don't want to keep adding the patient in over and over again. It's going to search them, they're there, no action. If they aren't there, action. So for us, we're just going to add and update the contact. I'm going to hit continue, and you're going to see our next thing here is like, which one do you want to use? My Zoho account. And then the action itself is I'm going to put it in my Zap webinar list. I've made my custom list already in Zapier, or in Zoho, where they'll all go once I'm finished. So I'm going to put in the email address. That's all they need for an email campaign, right? And then I'm going to put in the first and last name. And you see Zoho has a lot of things in here in a wacky order. Like the first name and last name are totally separate worlds. If you see here at the bottom, it says last name at like the longest scroll ever, and then keep going, keep going, keep going, and you're going to get to first name eventually. That's the order that Zoho gives us. We don't choose that. So it's kind of wacky, but you see the point there. I'm going to go ahead and test that action. Yep, test is successful. We're all set. That one's done. So it's a one-stepper. You add one thing, you test it, you're good to go. And then once that's all finished, you would have an option here I've already tested it, right? So I would have instead, turn on your Zap. Great, turn it on. And then it would look like this. So if I go into my webinar list on Zapier, or on Zoho, sorry, too many Z words, I have my total contacts here. If I click on those contacts, these are the accounts that I've actually zapped over, the patients I've zapped over today who have paid something in my practice. I've got 4 now. So they're updating as people are spending money in my, in my clinic. So I now have this curated list of people who spent money today. I could send an invoice over, an email over today if I wanted to at the end of the day, or I could wait 2 weeks or a month or whatever it is. But you've got this like specific list of just people to communicate with. You could also put them in Zoho directly and add the invoices in. Your systems can all work together. A lot of things you could do there, but this is a very high level, easy, put them on an email list and go. And then our very last one, unless you want to add something, Victoria, feel free to add. We've got things to...
I think it's great from a marketing perspective. We get we get questions every single day on marketing. So definitely utilize Zapier to facilitate and automate some of your marketing, campaigns. So.
Absolutely. Especially if they come to you from a certain place, referral source, you could now kind of go through and make that a tag. So the last thing I'm going to show you is a little bit crazy. If you're in a very busy practice, you will never want to use this in your life. If you're in like a concierge or a high touch, high margin, low volume practice, this could work for you. So I'm going to build a Zap where if a patient comes in today, I get a Google Calendar invite the next day at noon to send them either a phone call or an email follow-up. So you're going to see on my calendar, I'm going to have quite a few follow-ups at 12 o'clock noon on the dot. But this is a really nice way to remind people, whoever your patient concierge is, let's say it's a front desk email account, that their list of follow-ups could go directly into Google Calendar with all the details right there in one spot. And they can just go through and they could get all of it done in a really easy one action kind of thing. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. I will zoom us in again, don't you worry. All right, so we're going to do the same thing again. These are going to be paid patients who come in and actually spend money in our clinic. So same in the beginning, new invoice, and aesthetic record, we now kind of had this down pat, right? You're going to choose your app, AR, choose your account, the one that you've already connected, and then choose your trigger, new invoice. So those are all, you guys are old hats at this now. You know what you're doing. Next, we're going to go ahead and create a detailed event. So there's a quick event and a detailed event. I've chosen detail because I want my staff to have all the details they need to make this happen. So I'm going to choose my app, my calendar, or it could be the front desk calendar, whomever. The thing to note about the calendar is whatever calendars you have shared with you show up here. So when I went to do this morning, I had our entire AR staff. I had my family calendars. I had like 57 calendars to choose from. So I've deduced that down to just one for you as you see it in a second. But anything that you have access to as a Google account user, you'll see here as an option for the calendars. You can make these events for your staff, whoever else. But I'm going to go ahead and choose, obviously, just mine. I could change this as well, again, if I wanted to, but we're going to go ahead and just use our Google. And I'm going to go back over here. And I'm creating a detailed event. I mentioned that already. And it will tell you what that means. So if you look at your choices, it will tell you the difference in a quick versus a detailed versus all the things you could do. It's really nice, quite frankly. All right, so my calendar is going to happen here. We've got that all set up. And again, we're choosing just mine. I've got a million people who I can use, but we're just going to use my calendar. And then I'm going to call it, I have free text here. I'm calling it follow up with. Like that's what the note's going to be to my staff. Follow up with. And then the placeholder will be first name, last name. So it would be Victoria, Adrian, Sally, Sue, whatever their names are. And again, that will change as the invoices come in. And then the description, I'm just going to put in the description of the event what they need. Phone number, which I have on here twice. Oopsie. Paid on, an amount. So if you're going to call a customer, you kind of want to know what they spent, right? Are they like a big spender or not? I want Victoria to know when she calls, you know, Joe Schmo, he spent $10,000 yesterday. She's going to be a little bit nicer to him than if he spent $10. So I'm going to put all that stuff in my description of the calendar. So I have my data all in there. You could also put in referral source. You could put in all the other things if you wanted to as well, but I'm just choosing the things that are relevant in this case. And then I'm putting that I'm going to have a call, location call, and then add conferencing, no. And then here's where it gets a little bit tricky. You got to kind of outthink it or outsmart it. I want this to be a quick thing on the calendar, like a little note, not really a placeholder for 30 minutes. I'm just doing from 12 to 12:05. And if you write in things like tomorrow at noon, it will recognize that as 1/8/2020 at 12 o'clock. It's very, very smart. So you can kind of use layman's terms, it will figure it out for you. But I'm choosing the next day always at noon. And I have no repeat frequency. And I'm going to do my regular notifications, visibility, all the things that you would want to do for calendars. Now I'm going to show this as free. I don't want it to actually block my time, so I can't take a meeting, but I'm going to put it as free. And then I'm going to go in and save it, and we're basically good to go. We're all set up. So if I were to do this right now, it would say, turn on your Zap, you're good to go. But I'm already all set up. So I'm going to go into my calendar and show you now. If you see this long line of people, these little tiny notes here all the way across, if you see those are all of my people who need to be called tomorrow. So if I go into Edgar's account or his little meeting, I have remember I put phone numbers in twice on accident. I have his phone number here, and then I have the date of the invoice. And I bet if I make this bigger, I could probably see it. Let me see if I can zoom out of my screen here. 1 second. I must not have put in my, oh yeah, $2,400. I didn't put any spaces in. That's not a problem. If you would space it out, you'd be able to see that it would have like the phone number, the date, a space, and then the amount. And it's coming over in dollars. So back to my Zapier. I'm going to fix that right now and show you. If you make the same mistake I made, you can spread these out some. I just didn't do it because I was lazy. Sorry. Now if I have it like this, it'll show a big gap in between the numbers so it's not a mumble-jumbled mess like you just saw. But at least for every single one of these now, my team knows that tomorrow at noon, they've got to call all these folks and say, hey, how was your visit? Hope things are great. Put a review on Google for us. So it's a nice little task reminder, if you will, for the patient, and specific to just them, not like pulling a list out of AR. It's like, nope, it's already on your calendar waiting for you the next morning. So it's just a nice to have. So those are just a couple of different use cases, only 4. Nothing crazy intense for you, but I think it's a good start to at least see what's possible with Zapier. As I mentioned before, you could put things, we use Slack as a company. You could zap over your invoices to Slack and put them in a channel, like, you know, today's invoices in a channel, and you can have a whole list all day long of invoices coming in. You could put them in Calendly to book a meeting for you on Calendly. You can put them in QuickBooks, actually. So you can do QuickBooks if you have an integration, or if you have a login there, you can integrate the invoice number or amount into QuickBooks. Asana, if you want to do tasks, you can basically do all kinds of things. So if you don't want to do the calendar call, you could actually put it into Asana and assign someone a task, or into any of your like workflow systems. So there's an unending amount of things you can do with Zapier. And again, we're only zapping over 2 kind of chunks of things. We could do a whole lot more very soon that will give you way more opportunities to do even more. So I'll stop talking, Victoria, and let you take over.
I love it. I love it. No, I think, looking at, if you guys are using different systems, look at the systems, obviously confirm that they connect with Zapier. And our team is more than happy to help you strategize on ways to pass information along. Or if you're like, hey, I'm using this CRM, what do you guys think about it? We personally have been through, I don't know, we've used a lot of CRMs, so we've kind of been around the block. And we know bells and whistles of different ones. So we're more than happy to kind of give, our insights and what we've experienced using different platforms or different project management systems. So definitely email us. And like I said, we'd be more than happy to help.
We'll zap you something. And I think if my screen, if you want to show over just for one more second, JT, there is a place, if you go into Zapier, just like the Zapier.com, you can see like ways to use Zapier. You can explore all the different apps that you have access to. So it's a pretty robust amount of things, as I mentioned, but the issue is that for an app to be part of Zapier, they've gone through a pretty rigorous testing phase. You have to get with their developers. Like, it's an intense thing to become a Zapier account. Like, it's not a walk in the park, if you will. So you may see things on here that don't belong to Zapier. Like, I wish you could zap to this thing. We have no control over that, unfortunately, but the company who makes that software, that system, can always get onto Zapier and do it for you. But the good news is that once that Zapier connection is done, it's a safe data transfer. That Zapier is watching every day that container going from point A to point B. They're making sure that you are using the right credentials and logging in. If I build a Zap for me, and then in the morning I get fired, and Victoria, she gives me the axe and cuts off my Activecampaign account, that Zapier that I made with AC gets cut off because it's connected to my credential. So if I'm putting it somewhere, I can no longer get into it. So Zapier is pretty intuitive. They're doing like an active sync with each time. It's saying, is this person still active? Is this account still active? If the answer is no, it's going to cut it off. So it's a very intuitive system, which is, I think, for me, very comforting, because we have a lot of things that we're using every day. People come in and out, developers here and there. So it's pretty secure in that regard, which I think is really nice. The one thing I would say, too, to that same point is Zapier dictates how fast the sync will work. So for some systems that are giant, like Google, for instance, it's going to work instantly. When I hit go, from that minute forward, it's going to sync data in an instant. With AR and other smaller apps, it's going to be an every 15-minute sync. So if you build it right now, you're like, nothing happened. I just rung up an invoice and nothing happened. Wait 15 minutes, or even maybe 20 minutes. Once it starts, it'll get on a really good cadence of every 15 minutes. But that first zap may take about 15 or 20 minutes to get going. But it's the way that Zapier works. It's only going to sync that data every 15 minutes. So don't panic if you're like, I know I did this correctly and nothing is happening. It's just the way the system works. So I know that we instantly send over on the integrations all the patient data, but we can't zap it nearly as quickly. So, and if you also go to this site here, you can see all the different use cases. You can see case studies. You can get the list of apps and everything that you need. It's just really impactful for your business. And I recommend, if you're not using it, spend the $20 a month and get on board. I get 750 zaps a month for $20. You can't beat that. Like, there's just, it's so good. So anywho, I'll stop talking again. I just get so excited about Zapier, I can't hardly take it. It's my favorite. And then just as we think about so think about this before we go too. Don't forget all your other integrations. So you have lots of other things too on there that you can use. TouchMD, HubSpot, all the other things you have. So you can certainly use your native integration and the Zapier integration for the same system if you wanted to. So don't let that trip you up. Alrighty. Excuse me. Dying over here. Too much talking today. Do we have any last questions?
Well, thanks for all the great info. I loved it. I know we're so excited because we've been talking about this, for years, and we're so happy to actually see it, come to life. So we can't wait to hear about, all of the use cases that you guys are utilizing Zapier for in your practice. So keep us in the loop.
Yeah, if you set it up, tag us on Instagram. I'd love to share that you're setting up a Zap, because again, we're borderline obsessed with Zapier here. So we would love to celebrate your victory and that you're using Zapier for sure.
Mm-hmm. You sure would.
All right. Well.
All right. Well,
we'll see you again next week. Excuse me. I hope we have some announcements coming soon with some new features. Stay tuned for that. I think we'll have a big webinar, hopefully on Thursday or Friday next week, one of the two. Actually, I think it might be the week. Well,
I think we're
yeah,
couple.
we just skip a week. We have a big feature announcement coming then that's going to blow your mind, we hope. It's going to be all about the calendar and scheduling and some really impressive new ads that if you're a clinic doing a lot of different services and a lot of different types of business within one building, if you will, it's going to be very helpful for your practice. So stay tuned for that coming up on our next webinar. All right, with that, Victoria, I will see you then. Thanks, guys, for coming.
Yes, I will. Bye, guys. We'll see ya.
Bye.